Bill, when did you join the Marine Corps?
2005.
2005.
Yep, right.
Yeah.
I was 18.
Yeah.
Graduated high school early so that I could go. I've got a twin brother
Yeah.
who graduated even earlier than I did. He graduated at Christmas
Yeah.
and went to boot camp, and then I went 3 months after.
You graduated early just to go into the Marine Corps?
Yep.
So why were you so eager to go into the Marine Corps?
Well, I was eager to get out of school. Was
Okay.
probably a big
so
reason.
the push was stronger than the pull, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, and it was, so 2005, at the time, nobody knew how long everything was going to last, and so once I made the decision to join the Marines, I was kind of worried that, the war would end before I got a chance to go. So
yeah, you meant the war in Iraq, right?
Right.
No one, and this is 2019. We still have troops in Iraq, a small number,
Right.
Yeah. So, that's interesting because that's kind of the theme of you read the Civil War or the First World War. The guys are eager to get in because the word is going to be over before they make it. So that was part of your thinking, huh?
Yeah.
This is 2005, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much were you paying attention to kind of the news from Iraq?
I was addicted to it. I was
really.
Yeah. So about the time I decided that I was going to join. 2004 in November was the second big battle of Fallujah.
Yeah.
And so every day Fox News was just putting up keeping essentially live footage of the battle, and I was just glued to it.
So you're 18 at this time?
So I guess I turned 18 in November of 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 18, and you're seeing the news footage of the IEDs and the guys kicking in the doors, and you're thinking that's where I want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
The kicking in the door part, yeah.
The kicking in the door part.
Right. Yeah.
So let's just jump ahead real quick because you deployed twice, 2006, 2007, if I remember right. And your deployments were about 7 months each. So let's put you at about 4 months into deployment number one.
Mm-hmm.
How did the actual experience on the ground match up to your expectations when you were watching the news?
Well, it's whether it's watching TV or watching a movie or playing a video game or whatever, that you can't. The one thing I realized really quickly is you can't. When you're sitting on your couch, you don't, and you're thinking, oh, that would be cool to be shooting guns, or whatever. You don't realize you haven't slept. It's hotter than heck. As a junior enlisted guy, everybody's yelling at you. You're kind of the punching bag. So there's a lot of, a lot of that stuff I hadn't really, considered as much. So.
Probably hadn't anticipated the dust storms.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 120 degrees every once in a while.
Yeah, I would say 110s, but I think it broke 120 a couple times.
With your helmet on and 50 pounds on your back.
Yeah, and the full, flak jacket with sappy plates and everything. So it was, my first deployment, we pretty much lived. We were in western Iraq, kind of flanking Syria. And so we just slept under the stars, and we kind of rotated into these little, I don't know if you know what a HESCO barrier is, but it's imagine a really big sandbag with wires around it that you fill it up with a bulldozer and make walls. And so we just kind of had a couple of those on each side that we would sleep at. So we didn't take showers or change our clothes. So anyways, we got to, our camis would get so covered in salt that you could actually take them off and then stand them back up. Without.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff you don't anticipate when you're 18.
Right. Or
you just when you're watching it.
Yeah, but you can kind of hear the words, but it's hard to really understand what that means till you're experiencing it, especially at 18.
Yeah, and no French horns playing for you out in the desert and things like that. Like on the movie sound plays.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What was your job in the Marine Corps?
So my MOS was 0311 rifleman. I was in a light armor reconnaissance battalion, 3rd LAR. So and then my job specifically was a scout. In LAR, you have a platoon is 4 LAVs, You have
What's the LAV?
Light armored vehicle.
Okay, yeah.
So it's an 8-wheeled, similar to the Bradleys that the Armies have.
Yeah.
8-wheeled vehicle with a 25 millimeter Bushmaster
Yeah.
as the main gun, and then so 3 crewmen operate it, and then you have 4 scouts, a fire team of scouts in the back. So that's what I was.
Wow. So is your mission to go out and you're doing reconnaissance, or what are you doing?
It's I mean a lot of typical like straight leg infantry stuff, but conventionally LAR is used more as a reconnaissance force, and really I guess that's what we were being out on the flank like that. That's kind of how we were, more of a blocking position, I think, trying to keep the flow of fighters and weapons from Syria.
From Syria.
Yeah, to make it to Ramadi and Fallujah, where most of real heavy fighting was.
Yeah.
So.
So you did two separate deployments,
Mm-hmm.
and how much time in between those deployments?
About a year.
About a year.
Yeah, around a year.
So I've seen a photo of you and a young woman, and I think you told me that's your wedding photo?
Yep.
Yeah, so when were you married?
So I got, I started dating her in 9th grade, and we, high school sweethearts, so part of me thought when I was leaving to go to boot camp, like, well, we'll see if this works out, and I realized, the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder was really true in our experience. So as soon as I got to boot camp, I realized I wanted to marry her, started writing her a lot. The Marine Corps also, if you're married, they'd pay you more money and they'd let you live in your own house. So there's all these other benefits.
Incentive, yeah.
Yeah. So I got 10 days of leave after boot camp and proposed to her. We got engaged then. And then, so planned the wedding for, I figured I would get a 96, hour leave for Thanksgiving. So we got married the day after Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have known. You joined the Corps with Iraq and maybe Afghanistan in mind as well, or were you mainly thinking of Iraq?
So when I joined, they had pulled, it was in 2005 or maybe early 2006, they pulled all the Marines out of Afghanistan to focus on Iraq.
Yeah.
So Iraq was, the thing getting all the media attention at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Afghanistan was kind of a sleepy.
Exactly.
So I wanted to go to Iraq.
So you have Iraq in mind. Do you remember that being a topic of discussion with your fiance, with your wife, that the early part of our marriage here is a third partner is going to be the country of Iraq, probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean I had been die hard on joining the Marines for about a year. In last year in high school, so she knew what she was getting into, I think. So and knew that I was, likely going to be deployed and stuff. So
how of course, when I was in the service, we didn't have email and all that stuff. So a 3-week turnaround on letters was pretty fast. You send a letter and maybe get a response to that letter in 3 weeks, something like that. When you're out in the field, were you able to be in contact much? Or?
Not much. So we, even in boot camp, everything was just handwritten letters. Same with infantry training.
Yeah.
You could have a cell phone, but you weren't allowed to have it on you, like during the week. So I would call her on weekends.
Okay.
And then once we deployed, we had, I think our company had like 1 satellite phone or 1 or 2. So it would bounce around between the different platoons. So we might get it for, 1 week out of the month or something like that. So I would call home, during those weeks. But it was about once a month that I had that opportunity. Other than that, it was handwritten letters.
Really?
Yep, did a lot of handwritten stuff. We weren't at any, we were outside of any sort of base, so there was no internet access or anything like that. So.
So those letters, would they come find you in the field?
Yep. Wow. We'd get resupplied, just they're bringing us more MREs and just all the supplies you need. There'd be a sack of mail, once a week or something.
So you had that old-fashioned experience of that not many young people know these days, about the thrill of getting a handwritten letter.
Yeah, I was kind of right on the end of that, I guess. Shortly after, it was internet got a lot easier and satellite phones got more plentiful, and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Often veterans, when they get into a war zone, there will be, some moment or some event where they know that they're going into a war zone, but then something happens and there's that realization, like, wow, this is for real.
Yeah.
This actually isn't just a TV show.
Right.
Which of course it's not a TV show. For example, one Vietnam guy gets off a plane and within like 2 minutes a mortar round comes into the base or something like that.
Yeah.
Was there something like that for you that kind of, drove the point home that either this is for real, this is a serious war situation, or like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be all super excitement, in the positive sense.
Right. Well, the whole "this isn't going to be super exciting," I think that was probably day one of boot camp. I was seriously questioning my decision. So there was realizing that it wasn't going to be, just a bunch of glory, like Hollywood portrays it. That was pretty much an immediate realization. And then as far as, thinking to myself, okay, this is a really serious situation now. One thing that probably stands out in my mind, my first deployment, the city that we were kind of lived around and was the city of Arupa. It's kind of the one big city out west. And it's not that big, but it's maybe 80,000 people or something. But no coalition forces have been inside the city since the invasion. And so we were going to do a dismounted patrol through the city. Wow. And got this big brief where they said, you will take contact, all this stuff. And I was in 3rd platoon, and the order of march was going to be 1st platoon, 3rd platoon, 2nd platoon. And I was just so happened to be, I was going to be the first guy walking point for 3rd platoon. And about an hour before we stepped off, they said, hey, we're changing the order of march. 3rd platoon's going to take point. Wow. Which meant I'm taking point.
So you're the person literally at the point of the whole operation.
Right. And I thought, I'm going to be that dude who gets shot, when the ramp's coming down before he even knows that the fight's starting. I kind of had this little bit of fear all of a sudden, which by that point I had never really experienced any sort of fear, a lot of boredom, but no. And so as we were making our way into the city, it's like desert, and all of a sudden the city just starts. So there's walls, and my heart rate was going up. And as soon as I crossed the threshold of the city, it just all went away, and it was like something, switched, and it was just totally, there to do my job, no fear, no concern about dying or anything like that.
I've heard that kind of thing before. Like guys will say they were terrified until the first bullet flew, and then all of a sudden just kind of go into a different zone.
Yeah.
Does this resonate with you? I'll ask vets when they're going into this kind of situation, like maybe they're out on patrol in a village or something like that in Vietnam, and I ask them, so what are you thinking about? And a lot of times they'll say nothing. You're just, everything's just about training at that point. Right. It's just like all the switches are on automatic or something. Yeah. Is that kind of how it is? You're not thinking big thoughts and all that. You're just really focused on the mission.
Yeah, if I probably staying focused on the task at hand. The big thing that we were constantly doing was looking for IEDs, looking for snipers. So and trying to the big thing that they preached to us was you want to be a hard target is what they called it, which really means you want to look like you're ready to just tear something up, so that enemy who's waiting to shoot at you, maybe he sees you and you realize like these guys are for real. Maybe I'll wait for the next group to come along. So
so as you're going through, you're just continually scanning, ground up, and
looking for anything that's weird, kind of 360, kind of urban warfare. You're just
what are you looking for in terms of IEDs? So, I mean, another vet and I were talking a couple weeks back, and I had heard of them putting IEDs in like dead dogs and things like that. He said they would even kill people and put the IEDs in the bodies. I don't know, had that developed by the time you guys were there?
I could see that going down like in probably Fallujah or Ramadi when the fighting was really intense.
Yeah.
But I never just stumbled upon a dead body where, so.
Or the dead dogs, or you didn't see anything?
Well, I never saw a dead dog, but that was something that we were definitely aware of. And
IEDs in the dogs.
Yeah. So, but I never came across that. But
yeah,
I mean, trash. If there's which is tough because Iraq is essentially a big trash pit. So there's trash everywhere, but trash obviously needs for a wire or paved roads. If you could tell that a section of the paving looked different than the other section, like. Because what they would do is they would, take out a piece of the pavement, put an ID in there, and then repave it or put some asphalt over it. So things like that.
Did you come across any?
Oh yeah.
IEDs?
Oh yeah. We found a lot of them. Most of the time we could catch them, beforehand. A lot of the time we would think we saw an IED, and going back to what are you thinking about, towards the end of the deployment, they talk about getting complacent and things like that, but so often somebody might think that they saw an IED, so we'd have to call EOD, but EOD might be 2 hours away or something like that, so that what that really meant is, okay, we're going to have to cordon this area off and just wait now forever.
Yeah.
In the hot zone. And all I really want to do is just get back to the vehicle or get back to our outpost so I can take my gear off.
Just for the folks who see this, just so they know, ID, the improvised explosive devices, right? And then EOD, these are the guys that come out and dismantle
explosive ordnance disposal. So they're the bomb squad that come and disassemble it. Yeah.
Did the insurgents ever use that these operations as a tactic for, in other words, put an ID out there, intending it to be found, knowing then that the Marines are going to stick around waiting for EOD to show up, and then that makes those Marines a target of opportunity?
I mean anything creative that you can think of. They'd also do daisy chains was a big one, so there might be, an IED or a fake IED in one spot, knowing that, okay, they're going to see that and they're going to go hide over here, the real one's over there, or they'd set one off with casualties and they've got more around it and they wait for the other Marines to get close and then blow those up too. So they were tricky and creative.
Did you experience some of that stuff yourself?
I mean, we only got hit by one IED, and it hit one of our vehicles, killed the driver and wounded everybody else. Wow. That was a pressure plate. That was outside of the city. There was essentially a big creek bed where it just so happened the way the terrain was set up, it kind of funneled you into a spot, and so they were smart. They put it right in the funnel part, and my vehicle had gone over that same place the day before.
Wow.
And that was one thing we harped on all the time, is like, don't drive in the tracks of another vehicle, because for that very reason. But it was it was just one of those things. The terrain bottlenecked them, and this was probably 5 or 6 months in the deployment, right towards the end.
Yeah.
And so far we had been lucky by either spotting the IEDs or they weren't catastrophic enough, and
Yeah. Do you think had that IED, was it there when you went over it, or had they put it in the night before? You have no way of knowing?
I'm guessing. I think that they put it in because we found the guy who planted it, and so I'm thinking he probably may have seen us go over it or saw the tracks and knew that we were in the area and planted it then.
Yeah. So you've got the IEDs. Often what happens is the IED, I hear vets say you have the IED explosion, the vehicle's disabled, and that's when the shooting starts as well. Did you have to deal with some of that stuff too, taking the pot shots from?
Oh yeah, a lot of sniper stuff. We never got, my platoon specifically, never got hit. And then, you know, in some sort of complex ambush like that, this particular ID was essentially out in the middle of the desert.
Out in the country, yeah.
But yeah, it was not uncommon to take sniper fire on the dismounted patrols. In Aruba, on my first deployment, there was only the coalition forces, I guess, after the invasion, before I got there, had come and built essentially it was a berm around the entire city, and there was only 3 roads that weren't bermed off, and we had checkpoints, and that's where we would live if we weren't out, you know, watching the highways. But we lived there with Iraqi police and Iraqi army, and searched every vehicle that went in and out. But it wasn't uncommon for those places to get attacked by, you know, machine gun fire and RPGs and stuff. Yeah. Normally right at evening, right before the sun went down is when we would do it. Or if there was a sandstorm coming in, like right before, you could see this wall of sand, and right before it hit the city, you know, they'd try to light you up for a second, and then the sand would kind of come and cover them up. So.
Yeah. I guess you have to give them credit for being ingenious, right? I mean,
working with what they got. I mean, it's they're essentially no resources. All they've got is some really old Russian, you know, bombs and stuff laying around, and they're fighting probably the best military in the world. No probably about it. So, they.
I think that's what drives guerrilla warfare, right? Just there's no way they could take you on face to face. So, you said you were working with Iraqi military and Iraqi police. When you were around the Iraqi military Iraqi police, did you feel like you could trust them? You could rely on them?
Not really. I mean, some of them, but there was never, definitely not to the extent that I trusted other Marines or other, you know, kind of NATO forces.
Yeah.
Because we were briefed and heard stories of, you know, them turning on, you know, they'd have at least one bad guy who would turn, and we actually had an interpreter who was from Jordan. This is on my first deployment as well, who was a nice guy. I liked him. He was fun to talk to, and somehow through, you know, intelligence, we found out that he was providing data to insurgents as they were coming through the checkpoint. He always carried this really big bayonet on him, and so when we found out, me and a couple other guys had to go, you know, talk to him. I remember like, "Hey, Mark, let me see that bayonet." And as soon as I took the bayonet, we wrapped him up. You know, and he was he was horrified. He thought we were going to kill him right then.
Really?
Yeah.
So he went off to be interrogated, and
we
in prison somewhere.
Right, we took him to turn him over to other people, and so I don't know whatever happened to him.
I mean, that's got to be tough because you're in a country. You know, I'm imagining you walking through this town. You're looking around, and I don't know, maybe kids are waving at you and smiling, right? But are they?
They would. A lot of times they're, you know, Mister, give me chocolate. That's what because, you know, they got accustomed to that pretty quick. But they would also, in Rupa specifically, they would get these packs of boys, you know, age 8 to 15, and they'd be groups of, you know, 15 of them, and they would just pelt us with rocks the entire time, or bricks, and so they would, probably the only injury I ever got was taken, you know, like a brick to the face, and
thrown by some 13-year-old or something.
Right. So
this is what I'm getting at. I mean, this. And you're 19 or 20 at this
19
point?
At this time.
You're 19. So, I mean, 19-year-old from the States, now you're in Iraq. On one day you've got kids asking you for candy, the next day they're throwing rocks and bricks at you. You've got your interpreter, seems to be helping you out. You find out he's playing both sides. you know, you don't know if that seemingly harmless old lady is passing info to the insurgents. I mean, that's got to be, you know, putting even just the war stuff aside, just that, that's got to be pretty psychologically exhausting.
Yeah, I think,
Wow.
I mean, yeah, that they, you know, they had, but we were prepped for that. You know, one big slogan that I don't know if it was General Mattis who came up with it, but they were telling it to us constantly was, you know, as a Marine, no better friend, no worse enemy, and trust no one and have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
Yeah, that's Mattis. Yeah, that's Mattis.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, something like, you know, be kind and civil, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet. Yeah, something like that.
Right. That was, and that was, so that was front of mind. You know,
Really?
I was always kind of,
wow.
You know, you wouldn't turn your back to somebody.
Yeah. Well, how did you? Of course, you know, we went into Iraq because of the concern about the weapons of mass destruction, right? But by the time you get there, 2005, 2006, that's not really an issue any longer because Saddam had those weapons, but, you know, apparently got rid of them or something. But anyway, by 2006, 2007, when you're there, the goal in Iraq is now we're going to try to help this country become stable and something like a democracy.
Right.
What was your own perception of, you know, what's going on in this country? I mean, like, you know, I mean, did you ever ask yourself, you know, 19-year-old, you know, what am I doing here? What's the point of all of this, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder that, and then what answer did you come up with?
I'm sure I wondered it, and you know, really when I was there, I felt like, you know, most of the people there were good people. Yeah. And I felt like what America was doing, so what I was doing was, you know, kind of coming in to help these people, like exactly what, you know, the story was. That's what I thought I was doing, and yeah. And that's what I think, you know, most of us thought we were doing. But yeah. You know, for the most part, I wasn't really wrapped up in the politics. You know, right. I just knew that that Al Qaeda was evil, and that yeah. You know, these people, you know, I had never really tasted freedom before, and that was probably one big thing that I realized there was that, you know, culturally, coming from America where we're free to do all this, you know, pretty much anything we want. Yeah. Going to a place where that's not the model that they've grown up under, or that their ancestors have grown up under. You know, so many things that they put up with that we just wouldn't put up with. It was kind of mind blowing. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you guys are there to give that country a shot. Right. You know. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, give the country a shot and get rid of the dictator and help them out and train the military, train the police force, give them political advice and so on. Right. When you were there, and you know, I realize you're just a young guy and you're not thinking a lot about political philosophy and stuff. You know, you're doing your job as a Marine. Did you have the feeling like, you know, maybe it can work in this country? Maybe this country can become a stable, somewhat peaceful place? I mean, did you feel pretty positive that, you know, we're giving them a shot? Right. Did you feel positive that they would actually be able to make something of it? You know, I don't know. I was always very unimpressed with so it was the Iraqi Army that I was with in the first deployment, then Iraqi Police, the second deployment, and I was always really unimpressed with, you know, just them as soldiers, and but also their commitment to, you know, what they were doing. It was like, so I think I probably pretty shortly, you know, into the deployment, I you know, I think I probably was like, how are these guys ever gonna turn it around? You know? Understand that. Yeah. Was part of it that they realized if something big happens, the Americans are going to step in, so we'll just let the Americans. Maybe know, maybe I don't really know. You know, at the time, I didn't understand really the divide in the Sunni Shia culture.
Yeah.
You know, and I think in some ways it was a lot of the, you know, Iraqi army police that I was with were Shiites, and we were in a almost entirely Sunni area of the country. So I think even to them it was like, these aren't my people, you know.
Wow.
So
that tribal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have much interaction with Iraqi civilians?
Yeah, I mean, I would, yeah, quite a bit. So we would, obviously when we were searching the vehicles, you know, we would, you know, I'd get to talk to them, and I'd always ask them, you know, where are you from, where's your house, and that sort of thing.
Are you doing that through an interpreter, or had you learned some Arabic?
Yeah, I'd learned some Arabic.
Okay.
So, you know, I knew how to say things, and I could, but normally I couldn't really understand what. So a lot of times there would be an interpreter, or there'd be, you know, some of the Iraqi army would, in broken English, could kind of tell me stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd try to be, you know, another thing they would always tell us is we're winning, you know, hearts and minds. So we would try to be polite and cordial and talk to people and ask them, you know, we'd always ask them where's, they didn't call him Al-Qaeda, they'd say Alibaba, which I guess means, you know, thief or bad, just general bad guy.
Yeah.
So we'd always ask them, you know, where's Alibaba, and, you know.
Did anyone ever point you to Alibaba, or did they always
Not
say,
me
I don't
specifically.
know?
I mean, we would get intelligence, you know, we'd do a lot of raids. My first deployment, and about half the time, you know, it was a legitimate target. So that somebody was telling somebody, but I never got any good information like that.
Yeah, yeah. Did you feel like some of the, you know, of course you're having very quick interactions with these Iraqis, but just thinking of all the Iraqis you came into contact with, you know, police, army, civilians, did you get the feeling that at least some of them, you know, were hopeful that Saddam is gone, and, you know, we want to have a stable, peaceful society?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said those, you know, negative things. Sure, there were plenty of guys who were really good soldiers, really trustworthy, you know, but as a whole, it was not really.
Yeah, so. Yeah. You mean not really?
Not really, like, you know, their hearts just weren't in the fight. But there was plenty of them that were. You know, there's a lot of good ones and a lot of.
Yeah, but not enough probably to make the thing work.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, all these years later, there's still a big question mark over Iraq.
Right.
There's only so much you can do, right? And it's not just the U.S., but the Brits were there. I think especially in southern Iraq, a lot of Brits down in the Basra area, Australians. Did you have any interactions with forces from any other countries, or just U.S. and Iraqi? No,
we did a little bit of training with the Aussies prior to both deployments, and I would see them on. We might see them, you know, as we're going in and out on some of these bigger bases. A lot of different NATO guys with, you know, weird uniforms. So at the end of my first deployment again, as we're leaving, somehow I was detached from the platoon, so I was just by myself, maybe one other guy. And I got in a plane in Baghdad, and all these guys in tricolored camis with AKs, dark complected, kind of came on, and so I started talking to him. I said, "Where are you guys from?" And they said, "We're from Georgia." And at this point, I did not know Georgia was a country.
Oh, you're thinking of the state of Georgia.
Yeah. Kind of like, well, no, you're not. I've been to Georgia. I don't think you guys are from Georgia. And but anyways, they were from Georgia, and this is when Russia had. So I got to talking to him, and Russia had just, you know, I guess invaded Georgia, and so they were leaving Iraq really quick to go fight the Russians. And I remember thinking, like, man, I'm going home, you know. And for the most part, my deployment was a lot of, you know, boredom, and then a very, very quick moment of action, and a lot of boredom again.
Yeah.
Definitely not fighting any conventional force.
Yeah.
And then these guys that I'm sitting across from are about to go fight Russians.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know there were Georgians there. I've heard Estonians, even some Japanese, I think, were there in support roles, and Australians and Brits and so on.
Yeah, there's, I guess, a lot of a lot of NATO troops. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
There was some guys, must have been from Africa, who would guard like the chow halls and stuff on the bigger bases.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the workers in like the, basically the cities that got built with the Subway sandwich shops and all that. A lot of folks came in from the Philippines, I think, and other countries to work. How was you got orders to go the first time. You don't really know what to expect. You've seen pictures, but you don't know what 120 degrees feels like, and all that. But then you get orders to go, now you're going back again.
Mm-hmm.
How is that, in what ways, just how is that different the second time?
So we pretty much knew that we would be, by that point it was like, yeah, you do deployment, you go home for a year, do workup, do another deployment. My battalion was, they weren't in the invasion, but they relieved, I think it was 2nd LAR, who was the LAR unit in the invasion, and then they were there again during the Battle of Fallujah. So anyways, we pretty much knew a year after you get home you're going to go back.
Yeah.
So the big question was just where in the country are you going to go, and where is it going to be, hot there or not, so
I think the answer to that question is yes, right?
Well,
much
hot, yeah, for sure hot, but hot as far as like action.
Yeah.
In 06, Ramadi was the big, was where all the fighting was.
Yeah.
So, we all wanted to go to Ramadi. We got put on standby and to go, and I remember they said, hey, everybody make sure you call home. We got the satellite phone, everybody call home and get ready. It's going to be the second Fallujah. And then we were all jacked up, and then they stood us down like the next day and said, never mind, we're going to stay here.
Wow. So you were still a little gung-ho?
Oh yeah, I mean, the entire time I was, me and pretty much all of us were, we wanted to fight, we wanted to do our job. I think that was, nobody really joins the Marine Corps infantry not wanting to go fight. So.
Yeah. So where did you end up going on your second deployment?
Second time we went to, first we went to Rawa, which was a small city on the Euphrates River, and is where our sister company had taken the bulk of their casualties the deployment before. But when we went, it was this 07, 08, the Sunni awakening, they call it, had really started.
Yeah.
So it was a really pretty inactive deployment. We were still doing those same things, searching vehicles, living with the Iraqis and doing the dismounted patrols, but the amount of fighting was essentially non-existent.
Things had quieted down. And you had the surge, right? I forget when the surge was it 2004, 2005, something like that?
I think that was. Maybe 06 was when it was definitely happening, but sometime then.
Yeah.
I guess I was a part of the surge.
So things were calming down. If you just had to kind of, just summarize your experience in Iraq, those 2 deployments in Iraq, just in a sentence, I mean, how would you just summarize the experience?
For the most part, it wasn't nearly as much action as I was, thought we would get or hoped we would get. So it was pretty boring. And the first one was pretty hot. The second one was pretty cold because we were there in the winter time. So it was still physically really hard. We didn't sleep much. We living conditions were really bad, but it definitely wasn't the scale of war that so many other people have seen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen footage of the Marines in Fallujah.
Right.
Is that something we're more than a decade moved on now, but do you still kind of wish it had turned out differently and that you had been able to get into some of the tougher things, or when you look back, you're kind of glad that you maybe literally dodged that bullet?
Yeah, definitely, happy that I came home with all 10 fingers and toes in my life. And that for the most part, everybody else made it home. You know, I think that I'm glad I didn't experience any of the negative stuff that, you know, goes with really heavy combat, but, you know, yeah, I think I also wish that I, you know, could have, you know, killed more terrorists, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
now, you just said killed more. I mean,
well, killed someone.
Okay. So. Yeah. So there is that. I don't want to dwell on this, but there is kind of that thing, like, I don't know how to say it without sounding stupid, but just, you know, there is kind of that. Gosh, I wish I could say that I'd taken out a couple of those guys who really are.
Absolutely. I think that's really common. I mean, people who go do that want to do it. You know, it's and a lot of guys in combat, especially if you're winning, it's fun. You know, when you're kicking ass, and so.
I've heard that there's no, you know, war may be awful, but it can also be really thrilling.
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely the adrenaline that you're, you know, and just the level of, I mean, being 19 years old with a machine gun, you know, kicking indoors is pretty awesome, you know, until
that's a lot of power.
Until it's not.
Yeah, that's a lot of power. Why did you decide to call it with one enlistment? Yeah,
well, quite a few reasons. I mean, and you probably know this, I mean, the military is just a tough place, especially as a junior enlisted guy. You get treated bad. The Marine Corps got a culture for, you know, you're kind of, I heard somebody say, you know, one of the great things about the Marines, or why they're so good, is because they're made to be miserable all the time so that they can put up with it. So if you're getting treated bad the whole time and getting paid essentially nothing, that was probably the biggest reason I got out, was because I wanted to make more money. And really it was when I got out, so in 2009 is when I got out. They had just started sending Marines back to Afghanistan. There was some action, but Iraq was over. I mean, there was no more fighting. So I thought, and again, you know, you can't see the future, but I thought the war's over, so I'm going to get out. Had I known that Afghanistan was going to escalate again like it did, I probably would have stayed in. Actually, really? I tried to, so 2-7 was the Marine Battalion that out of the same base that I was out of. And they were one of the first, I think, maybe 2-5 and 2-7 were some of the first Marines back into Afghanistan, and we're getting these reports that they're actually seeing a lot of contact, and and so a buddy of mine, we both for weeks tried to go be combat replacements for 2-7. We said we'll extend our enlistment. We went and talked to the regimental sergeant major and stuff, and it looked like we were going to be able to go, but then at the last minute, I had a new battalion sergeant major, and they said, yeah, just if your battalion signs off on it, you can go. And I remember I went, you know, stood before him, and he just looked at me and said, "You're married?" And I said, you know, "Yes, Sergeant Major." He said, "No way."
Oh, you know,
wow. Like, get out of here. Wow. And so,
now your wife probably appreciated that.
Yeah, she did. I'm sure. Yeah, my wife and my family. That's another reason I got out. The mental toll I think that it took on my family was probably worse even than what I was going through. So the combination of not being treated well, not being paid, and my family really wanting me to get out were all reasons.
So it's interesting what I'm hearing you say. Correct me if I'm not correct, but what I'm hearing you say is that, you know, you got into the Corps because you wanted to do what Marines are known for, right? Which is, as you said, kicking indoors and taking it to the enemy. And when it became clear that, I mean, then you tried to get to Afghanistan because that's really what you wanted to do. But when it became clear that that wasn't the kind of Marine you were going to be able to be just because of decisions other people made and units
Right.
you got into, then it was time to move on. But if they said, well, you want to get into a fight, here you go, then you would have re-upped for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, I even still to this day think if something popped off again, you know, it's always, I've got, you know, it would be much harder now because I'd have 2 little boys and
Yeah.
32, but.
Have you thought about becoming an officer? And
Yeah, I have. I have talked to the, you know, the recruiters, OCS recruiters. It's, I think that, you know, it's probably still a money thing, and, you know, signing years of your life away without having any real say in where you're going to go is kind of just a gamble. So,
what would your wife say if you said, "I think I want to go back in as an officer"?
It would be
uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, very. You know, no, she would not be okay with that.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you know, the Marines have this thing, you know, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? Do you feel that yourself?
Oh yeah.
You see a guy with his Marine hat on, will you sometimes go up and say something to him?
Typically, normally, yeah, I'll say, you know, Harry Marine, Semper Fi, you know, we'll talk a little bit, so.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you before we started filming, I was Navy, and we're always jealous of you guys because you looked cool in your uniforms, you know, unlike us. So, well, Bill, I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about your deployments to Iraq. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. You bet.